of their scents in future society are created using the DNA of extinct flowers. I think this is the beauty launch that I have been the most excited about talking about in a very, very long time. Today we are talking about Future Society. This is a new perfume house that launched from the parent brand Archaea. Jasmina Aganovic is the creator behind this. She describes herself as someone who is passionate about beauty. She is an MIT chemical engineer. And so Archaea, her parent company, utilizes biology in the world of beauty. So the noses behind Future Society, one of them jumped out to me in particular because this man is famous for a lot of different perfumes. Brands like Byredo, Atelier Cologne, some Wilhelm Parfumery, and Cheirosa from Boom Boom Cream, the Sol de Janeiro one. So this particular line launched with 6 fragrances. I picked up the sample set. This has been such a fun exploration. All of their scents in Future Society are created using the DNA of extinct flowers. Tell me that is not insanely cool. All of these things have ceased to exist in our modern world, some of them for well over 100 years, and they were able to utilize these DNA samples to get a sense for what these scents smelled like. And so they utilized different olfactory notes that these perfumers were able to recreate what they think these particular plants would have smelled like. Now, the sample set is $35, and then the full-size fragrances is $98. And I believe it is a 50 ml bottle, which is 1 ounce. So I thought this was very interesting, but there was a lot of people on TikTok that were talking about how they thought this fragrance line was way overpriced, which I completely disagree. I think this is niche perfumery, which it's more expensive in general, right? This is a completely new brand, but they've also done something incredible by utilizing the science to reconstruct DNA from these extinct plants. And then additionally, I will say, after sampling these, the longevity of these is incredible compared to some fragrances that I have used in recent years. I have been very underwhelmed by the performance of a lot of fragrances lately, and these last, some of them, for days on my clothes. Like, I will pick them up and it still smells like the fragrance that I was sampling before. There are a few that are a little bit stronger than others, but we'll get into all of that in a minute. With this sample set, I think that they did a really beautiful job with these 6 initial perfumes of creating things that are suited to anybody. I think that there are some that lean more feminine and some that lean more masculine, some that have a little more sillage than others, and some of them wear a little bit longer. So I'm going to go through all 6 of these, starting from what is, in my opinion, the most feminine scent and work into the most masculine scents. And I will tell you, there is one that I can't get it out of my head. I am running out of my sample and I'm very sad about that, and I need a full bottle of it. So stay tuned to figure out which one that is. Here are all of the fragrances in the coffret. So let's start with the one that I think is the most feminine in nature. So this one is called Solar Canopy. This particular fragrance is inspired by an extinct Hawaiian tropical flower, Hibiscadelphus wilderianus. This was last observed in 1912. It's a very fruit-forward floral. I think that it smells a lot like Parfum de Marly de Lina. And they do share some similar notes. I took some notes here. Let me take a look. They share lychee, rose, bergamot, vetiver, but instead of that vanilla, you get pistachio and magnolia. Notes for this, I'm going to read them off. The top notes are bergamot, red currant, pink pepper. Heart notes are Turkish rose, lychee, pistachio, magnolia. And the base notes are vetiver, ambroxan, and pink sugar. Oh, it's so pretty. It is so, so pretty. What I think is so fascinating about this one is how much it changes from the initial spray through to the dry down. And actually, I find that to be very true of all of these fragrances, but particularly with this one. So it almost has like a mango-y type scent up front, which I assume is the lychee. And What I love so much is that this particular fragrance, unlike Delina, does not have vanilla. Vanilla on me always tends to start smelling kind of just dirty. I know that's not common for a lot of people, but for me, I feel like when I have a vanilla perfume on, I don't smell fresh anymore. I just smell kind of musty and dusty. And so I love that there is no vanilla in this. I will also say it's not a weak perfume by any sense of the imagination. It starts very strong, but eventually it does become much closer to your body in terms of sillage. I can still smell it on my clothes in the morning if I spray it at night. It definitely lasts, but it does not have the biggest projection out of these scents. I will say though, it is just lovely. It smells so good. It gives me what I wanted Delina to give me, which is that really beautiful, kind of sensual, sexy, fruity floral. But the problem with Delina on me is that rhubarb pulls very sour on my skin and the vanilla goes very powdery. So I don't get a very pleasant experience when I wear Delina the way that so many people do. But with this gives me what I hope Delina would smell like on my skin. This is really, really beautiful if you like more of a feminine, fruity, floral fragrance. The next scent that we're going to talk about is Haunted Rose. Now, I thought that I would really, really love this fragrance. And while I enjoy it, it's very different than I thought it was going to be. So this particular fragrance is inspired from Macrostylus villosa 1 and 2. And this was found in South Africa, little shrub-like plant. And the last time that it was seen was in 1960. So this one opens with black pepper, saffron. The heart notes are rose absolute and passion fruit, and the base notes are ambroxan and sandalwood. And this perfume is very fascinating because when you first spray it on, it has an enormous presence. And my husband even said, he's like, it has a very masculine kind of smell. And I don't disagree with him. It gives me that sort of like rose oud kind of fragrance. And I actually really enjoy that. The dry down though, this one really confused me a bit because on me, it smelled like vanilla. There is no vanilla listed in this, but it had almost a very sugared, candied rose kind of effect on my skin, which was really, really interesting. And much like Solar Canopy, the longevity on this one and the sillage on this one is quite a bit quieter on me than some of the other fragrances that we're going to talk about. Very, very beautiful, but this is a great example of why you can't just go based off of the notes listed. You really do need to try fragrances on before you buy a big bottle and commit, because they really can change based on your chemistry. Now let's talk about one of the fragrances that I think is one of the most perplexing out of this initial launch. That is Reclaimed Flame. This was inspired by a sample of Leucadendron grandiflorum. And this was a species that once flowered on the western Cape of South Africa, and it was last seen also in 1960. The notes of this one, bergamot and grapefruit, so you've got that citrus opening. Now here's where things get interesting. The heart note of this is geranium, curcuma, eucalyptus, and the base notes are armoise, and chamomile. So like, let's just kind of break this down. You get this citrusy burst, and then the mid notes of this, you've got that eucalyptus. So there's kind of this like freshness, but it almost pulls through a little bit like licorice in my opinion. And the curcuma is like turmeric. So what I have found with this one is you get this like kind of freshness in the opening, and then as it develops on your skin, it turns into a very rooty, earthy scent. And like when I say rooty and earthy, on me, it started to smell like I had been gardening and like pulling roots out of the dirt. Like it had such an incredibly earthy scent. This is not something I would reach for ever. Like this is not something I would wear. I think again, it kind of boils down to chemistry, but this smelled like fresh soil and roots on me in the dry down. Again, another great reason why you absolutely need to try something before you buy a full bottle. Fascinating scent though, and I can imagine like being, you know, on the Cape of Africa and smelling something like this. Truly a fascinating brand. I've really, really enjoyed this. Now we're going to talk about one of my favorites from this line. This is the one that I have really kind of killed my sample on compared to some of the other ones, and that is Floating Forest. This is a very different type of scent that I don't normally gravitate towards, but this wears so beautifully. It is very clean. It gives you sort of this woodsy element, and it's like you are walking through an ethereal forest and there are flowers and moss and a little creek going by you. So this one was inspired by the Sharea cuspidata, which was a towering tree endemic to Borneo. It was last spotted in the wild in 1998, and it is extinct due to logging. So this fragrance is really, really beautiful. It's fascinating. It starts a little bit more astringent, and then it just blooms into this beautiful green, luscious sort of scent, and it has a very, very clean trail. So the notes of this one are black pepper and bergamot. Going into those heart notes, you get some freesia, water lily, rose absolute, and in those base notes, you get cedar, salted musk, wet stones, papyrus, and driftwood. I'm telling you, this stuff is so, so beautiful, and it lasts. It lasts on my skin. It lasts on my fabric. It lasts so well that, like, where I had been driving, I could smell it on my seatbelt the next day, like when I got in the car, and I was like, I kept smelling it. And I'm like, what is that beautiful smell? And I was like, oh, it's Floating Forest, because I had it on yesterday when we were driving back from the mountains. And it's one of those things I can also smell it on my sheets. Like when I get out of bed, I can smell it on my bra when I put it on again the next day. It is honestly, like, the longevity of this one is so, so nice, and it's just clean and fresh, and I might have been converted by this scent to more of a woodsy loving kind of scent girl. Like, this is, I need a full bottle of this. It is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Another great example of why you absolutely have to try fragrances is the fragrance Grassland Opera. Now, this is a scent based off of the name alone that I was like, I'm probably not gonna like that. And then I put it on my wrist, and I was like, oh my God, that is incredible. It is one of the more complex scents I think I have smelled in a really long time. And also one of the biggest evolutions through the top notes, heart notes, and base notes. And when I tell you, I understand why they named it Grassland Opera, because this thing starts off as a beautiful sopranic solo, and then it moves into this chorus where it gets a little bit louder, and then you have the baritone belting out a crescendo at the end in those bass notes. It is a ride. So this one was inspired by Orbexulum stipillatum, which was a flowering plant on the plains of the US, I believe Ohio more specifically, and it was last seen in 1881. And then it says on their website, the flower is thought to have collapsed when the buffalo ceased migrating across the plains. So let's go through the notes of this, because this one has probably the most notes out of any of these fragrances. Bergamot, clary sage, ginger, fig leaves. The heart notes are ylang ylang, jasmine, and mimosa, and then the base notes are sandalwood, patchouli, guaiac wood, akagala wood, and ambrifix. So let me tell you, this is a journey. You get some of those earthier, more almost herbal type of notes in the beginning, and then in those heart notes you really get these beautiful florals that start coming through, and then in those base notes, they are deep, they are heavy, they are big. Like, I was on such a journey with this one. So when I first sprayed it and I really got those lighter notes in the beginning, in the first couple of hours, I was in absolute heaven with this. I absolutely loved this. My husband did too. He's like, it smells very clean. It has a really pretty smell. And then those base notes started coming in, and I was like, I smell like a dude wearing cologne. Like, it is boisterous, okay? I am very, very curious who the exact nose was behind this one, because it reminds me a little bit of something I smelled from Atelier Colognes, which was Mr. Jerome Epinette. So I'm very, very curious. I would love to know who the actual nose was behind this one. I like it a lot. I don't know that it's for me, but I really enjoy this. And I think I need to like put it on my husband and see if I like it on him, because it smells really, really good. It's just, I think, a little too masculine leaning for my personal taste. We're down to our final fragrance. This one is called Invisible Woods. Now this one was inspired by Wendlandia angustifolia, a small flowering tree that once thrived in India's Western Ghats mountain region, and a drought is the reason why we no longer have this particular plant. This was last recorded in 1917, so a very, very long time. So this one, I think, was the final dry down was the most masculine smelling on me. The top notes are grapefruit, eucalyptus, and ginger, so you get a little bit of that freshness and lift in the opening. The heart notes are rose absolute and chamomile, and the base notes are iris and akagala wood. And this one on me just smelled very, very strong, woodsy, and masculine. I find it interesting because the opening of this one it almost smells like you have dried chamomile and rose petals and you've crumbled them up and you get sort of that dry, almost dusty kind of smell. And then as it deepens, you really start to get more of that rose and those woodsy base notes. And when I say this one is a beast in terms of longevity, it's insane. I sprayed it on the inner part of my arm and I took a shower and I think I scrubbed that spot like 3 times. I could still smell it when I got out of the shower. I could still smell it the next day. This is a commitment, okay? Because it is not leaving you anytime soon. You have to really, really want to smell like this. It smells nice. It's just not something that I would personally gravitate towards, I think. It is a fascinating scent though, and it really does change and evolve through the notes as you finally land into those base notes. Again, I think I'll probably try to spray this on my husband because I like it. I just don't think it's me. Honestly, this brand has been so exciting for me to explore and discover and try all of the different scents. I've been very, very surprised with the results of what I actually really like from this brand. It's very different than I thought. But again, that's why having a sample set is so smart for brands. I think the one thing I do wish that they would do is if you purchase a sample set, add a credit towards a full bottle, because I absolutely want to get a full bottle of Floating Forest, but I think that that would be such a nice incentive for consumers. So if you are watching this, Future Society, consider throwing that in, because I've seen other brands do that and I really, really love that. It keeps your customers coming back. But I still do want to get a full bottle of Floating Forest because it's just, oh my gosh, it's heavenly. I am very excited to see what Archaea comes out with next, because I think they have done this in a very smart way by having their parent company starting with Future Society as a fragrance company, but from Archaea itself being biology inspired, I think that they are onto something really, really unique and special. And I really love what they did with Future Society by utilizing extinct plant matter's DNA to craft what they imagine these scents to have smelled like. I think that it was just a very, very smart, bold, interesting move, and one that I have thoroughly enjoyed. And I hope that you will too. I will put the links down below if you want to shop their website. Huge, huge fan of this brand so far though. If you enjoyed this kind of video, if you want to see more from me, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time. Bye.